All right. So, okay, my name is Evan Strong, and I make content like this around the lacing of our shoes, the tying of our shoes, and the things within the clothing that we wear in modern 2024. Today's the 12th of September, 2024, and how those things greatly affect our body's natural capability, natural rotations, natural balance, natural strength, and just pull it out of its natural center line and its natural positions. So, prerequisites of mine that I always say are to lace your shoes with my technique, which is within my content in multiple places. It just allows the shoe to fit around your foot as a glove would on the hand. That lacing technique includes tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside to reinforce internal rotation of the entire body. Pairing that with removing the tags, stemming at the tongue of your shoes up through every item of clothing you wear. And I've gone into great depth within my tens of hours at this point of content that I've already made on what all that does, and I've got a lot that you can go back and look through. So I'm actually going to take off my shoes. Yeah, never really done that in a video, but we're going to do that because I'm going to show what it looks like to have a natural gait cycle, meaning just natural walk, the way that the foot and the ankle and the knee and the hips and the shoulders and the back and the head and the rotations all work naturally to walk in the way that we would naturally walk as humans before the clothing, especially the modern clothing that I've gone over how it's different, quite a bit different, like a lot different than clothing ever was in the past. And a lot of that's to do with materials, a lot of that's to do with design, and a lot of that's to do with the way that it's made as far as like through industrialization rather than actually made individually by people. So, my toenails look how my toenails look, hey, all right. If my feet are white, hey, all right. All right, so I'm gonna show, also, good thing to mention, I've talked about nails before and the importance of having nails. You'll see me with fingernails, and some people might think whatever they might think about having long fingernails. It's not really about long fingernails, but your nails, whether they're on your toes or on your hands, I'm just getting like the lint off my feet from the socks, but those nails really are very important for just natural function because they provide support to either the fingers or the toes. So if you don't have nails on your toes, you can't have an arch. Just about that simple, because your toes have to have support to be able to create that arch that I'm always talking about with internal rotation, just a natural arch. So I haven't been barefooted in the grass in a very long time. Okay, when we talk about a natural gait, a natural neutral stance, as I always show, with internal rotation, posterior tuck of the pelvis, waistline of the pants slightly higher in the front than in the rear, pants up off of the hips, shirt seams on top behind the shoulders, and shirt seams at the edges of the shoulders, ideally no farther out than the edges. This shirt has stretched a little bit. I was doing a lot of overhead work today. Right, don't get so nitpicky with it, but they really should be right at the edge of your shoulders, just because that way it's where your hinge points are allowed to hinge. So when I show my natural neutral stance, just because I've allowed my body to get where us as humans, universally designed in the image of our God who is Jesus Christ, we are all designed the same, structurally, skeletal system wise. That's how I can speak for people, having never met them, because the imbalances within human bodies in 2024 are just about always caused by clothing. So that's how I can speak for people, because we are all the same structurally. So within, if you have deformity, if you have an injury, if you've had a surgery, those things are obvious things in your own personal situation. Other than that, universal. Okay, so yeah, I haven't had like videos like these kind of videos that I've now been making with my shoes off to actually show like barefooted what it looks like. But when we're talking about a natural gait and a natural openness, a good example of this, like type of people that do a certain activity, are gymnasts. Gymnasts, whether they're men or women, they generally have a very well-functioning body, because in order to do what they do, similar to martial artists, all they use is their body. So they get it into a good natural functioning position, and so they're a good visual to look at. The reason I mention gymnasts is because you see them walking similar to how I walk. Very internal and open, right? So when I always say that the shoelacing technique of mine that I show is the only way to just allow your shoe to fit like a glove on your foot, well, then it just allows your foot to be in this natural, open, internal position on the outsides of the feet. And yes, it's good to show with no shoes on, because I've shown like the natural slight bow that's universally within legs, traveling up from that healthy arch all the way up. So when you're going to be walking in a neutral, natural gait cycle, when I talk about things that I talk about within the body, I always say we should never be conscious. Our body does what it does. It breathes, it blinks, it pumps blood, it heals itself, it does all these things without us telling it. It will do physical mobility type functions, walking and climbing and anything that it needs to do without us telling it how to do it, unless it's restricted. So in this, talking about a natural gait, I'm not going to tell you to do anything with your body. It's just do the things within the clothing placed on your body, and then I'll give a demonstration of what it looks like and kind of explain the natural gait. Because if you don't have natural dorsiflexion, which means the toes coming up, flexion of the ankle upward, if you don't have the ability to do that, which requires internal rotation, because if you're in external rotation, you will then have an anteriorly rotated pelvis, and you can't lift your foot. You need to tuck in, internal, posterior, and then you can have a lot of dorsiflexion without compensation. And a lot of that's to do with a heel on the shoe too. That's why I mentioned you need to have flat shoes from toe to heel, because right now, with nothing on, this is natural, my feet, as is every human's foot. With nothing on it, that's natural. And there's nothing elevating my heel in a natural functioning foot. So if there were a heel on your shoe, a natural gait, if I were to just walk right here naturally, my heel needs to be able to swing through with no adjustment of my hips left to right without my heel hitting the ground. And so if there's a heel on the shoe you've placed on your foot, now there's excess space there to where you can't swing. Look at my hips, how they do not sway. They stay completely level because there's natural strength within them in the natural working position. But if there were a heel on my shoe to where I didn't have room between my heel of my actual foot and the ground to swing through without my hips adjusting, then my hips will have to adjust. And that places you from a posterior position, internal. This is a very good visual. I haven't shown my body like this in this kind of content yet. External rotation, how a lot of people are nowadays, they're standing like this. The arch, natural gripped arch, again, toenails are important for that to allow support for the toes. Natural gripped arch, posterior tuck with the pants above in the front, higher in the front than the back, above the hips for them to open into internal rotation. In this position, there's not much room because your body's designed to have the amount of room it needs. And it only needs a little bit for the hips to be able to be completely level and swing through. So placing a heel on the shoe will alter that and put you into anterior tilt and external rotation. And the people will be walking like this. When I talk about it all the time, you see people walking with their feet out, they're walking like this. Hip flexors will be tight, glutes are activating in an unnatural position, pelvis is just rotated weird, arches are collapsed, knees will then be in. People are walking around like this. And it doesn't look so abnormal to a lot of people in 2024, but they'll just kind of walk like this. No, a natural walk, if you're going straight, your knee wants to hinge straight. And if your foot is out, your knee can't hinge straight, right? So you have to internally rotate, and you just have a straight bend, forward, forward, forward. Look at my toes. Look where my toes are pointing. My toes are pointing where I'm going, right? If I were to run, I'm gonna run towards the camera. Watch where my toes are pointing, because if I didn't have internal rotation, as a lot of people, as I mentioned, nowadays are stuck in a chronic state of external rotation, then I'm not pointing my toes in that case of a state of chronic external rotation where I'm actually going. So I'll run normal toward the camera, watch my toe, where my toes are pointing. See that? When I'm running, my toes are going to point where I'm going. If your toes are pointing out, well, how are you going to function like a normal human? I just don't want that to sound like an accusation, because if you don't know, you don't know. But it's just that it's that crazy to try to force your body to work in a position it's just not designed to. So, toes point forward, knee can then bend straight, and everything's just in line. Hips open, and then you're just hinging straight, right? Because the toes, when I talk about being internal slightly, it's because look how much motion's in the ankle. My hips are open, right? My knee is straight, but my ankle has all of this motion from straight to clear in here. A ton of internal rotation. I always say to think about like a martial artist, right? Bringing that toe in. So if you can't posteriorly rotate because you have pants closing your hips, then, right? Then you can't keep your toes going where you're going. And even if you have those prerequisites, if you have a heel on your shoe, you can't keep your toes where you're going because everything has to try to make room for a heel. If your laces are collapsing your arches, now you can't walk like this just because your knees will hit. And so you have to point your feet out, and now you're walking like this, and your knee can't even hinge the direction you're going, right? So this is, again, you don't need to know the anatomy. All you need to know, universal human design, every single human within, again, if you've got your own like very personal differences, but every single human is universally designed foundationally within the structural skeletal system of the workings of the body, right? That's why my lacing technique and tying technique is what I say to do. That's why the pants need to sit where I say to have them sit. That's why the shirts need to sit where I say to have them sit. Because then your body will just do its thing. So I'm just gonna walk very normal, neutral. Again, it looks very similar to like how gymnasts walk. And the reason that is because it's pretty uncommon for at least like quite a great majority of the population in 2024 to just have a normal, natural walk because of the clothing. Certain lifestyle choices do play into it, but no matter how much you're working out or trying to get your body to operate normal, again, if you're not wearing clothing that's allowing it, it will never happen for me or any other human to ever exist. So yeah, right? Nothing has to shift. My hips don't shift, my shoulders don't shift, my head is straight, my toes are straight, my knees are bending straight. And with each step, I'm allowed to completely extend my hip flexor using its full range of motion because I'm allowing it to internally rotate. To get your leg completely straight, it has to internally rotate. If it's an external rotation, your back's trying to like compensate, and it just doesn't work. You have to internally rotate to elongate this hip flexor all the way. And then you can just have a very neutral, natural gait cycle. I'll just walk across the frame this way. Right? Just neutral, natural. Everything stacked in a slight bend with internal rotation, active core, without thinking about any of that. Because that's how the body is designed to work. Internal, right? So, I'm gonna wrap up this outro before the mower gets close to where there's noise from the mower. So, anyway, that's why, again, it's only the clothing. Like I said, there are lifestyle choices, and there's things in 2024 we haven't had in the past that could be playing into people's body's positioning. But no matter what they tweak within those things, no matter how many exercises they try to do, they will never, again, I included, would never in those cases be able to have a naturally functioning body without proper positioning of where the clothing sits on us. So, if you want to stick around for when I start designing clothing designed by me, Evan Strong, I'm going to be designing minimal clothing made out of 100% natural materials, as it should be and as it pretty much always was until a few decades back, just to allow the body to work proper, sitting where it should in those places I mentioned. And if you do decide to purchase my clothing, please only purchase it in a size that actually fits you, because it needs to fit where the body pivots and hinges, and that's the reason I'm designing it. There's so much abundance of clothing, at least here in the United States of America. There doesn't need to be more necessarily, but it needs to allow the body to work rather than us having to try to work around it. So that's what I will do within my designs. If you'd like to purchase that when it comes time, stick around for that, it will come. Meanwhile, I've got a lot of content, modifications you can do within the clothing you already have for free with nothing but a pair of scissors. My content is also free. But yeah, there's your natural gait cycle. And again, as I always say, the body just works. We just need to stop restricting it, and it will do that naturally. Okay, thank you. Yes, it's not about working up to anything. I make these bold claims about how we should not stretch unless something major happens. We should not be exercising just for the sake of getting exercise. It's about a positioning of the body that it would naturally be in. It's not about working up to a capability level. We all are capable to our own degree, and we're just so out of touch with where our center line is and our natural function because of modern day 2024 and the way the world is. So, thank you, and yes, a natural gait, it won't be allowed to happen without these clothing items. I do not stretch, I do not work out, I do not do exercises to try to get to a capability level, and I didn't used to be able to function this way. It's just because of the clothing allowing my body to work. So the extent on how that is affecting us, I go into great depth to where none of this is opinion. You can try it on your own self. Any human on any part of the globe could try these things that I'm speaking on within their own body, within their own clothing. It's just universal truth I'm shining light on. So anyway, it's all so much simpler than we could have possibly hoped even, to just have a natural functioning body. So thank you.